And welcome to the Labor Forum. You are tuned in to WRFG 89.3 FM here in Atlanta. My name is Diane Mathowitz, and I'm the co-host of the Labor Forum along with Paul McLennan. And we are so pleased to join you again on this Monday, September 22nd. The song that always starts the program off is We Do the Work by John Fromer. I hope you enjoy it. And I hope it brings up to you the truth that literally everything in society is done by workers, and we are, in fact, the ones who make society run. And we want to make sure that our voices, our opinions, our views, our solutions are not just listened to, but are the rule of the land. So I want to say that the opinions that are expressed on this program may not necessarily be those of the Board of Directors, staff, or volunteers here at WRFG. This is a kind of a sad day, and in place of our regular opening segment of labor headlines, we here at the Labor Forum wish to share the following message. The WRFG family and the progressive community in Atlanta, Latin America, and the world are united in sorrow today at the death of Jorge Lawton, an esteemed member of the Beyond Borders program here at 89.3 FM. Jorge lived an extraordinary life as part of the revolutionary movement in Chile that saw the election of Salvador Allende, and he suffered at the hands of the U.S.-backed coup by Augusto Pinochet on September 11, 1973. He brought his extensive knowledge of political, economic, and social issues affecting countries throughout the Caribbean, Central, and South America to the airwaves of WRFG and to the many organizations he supported. He was able to explain the machinations of the U.S. government and the corporate interests it serves while affirming his belief in the power of the people's resistance to oppression and exploitation. Jorge loved this thing. He liked enjoyed immensely socializing over coffee and dinner. And he was a great conversationalist with a recall of amazing stories, all told in colorful detail. Over the last several years, he dealt with multiple health issues, but nevertheless could be found at countless demonstrations and events demanding justice for immigrants, workers, and the poor. He was a great advocate for WRFG and its progressive mission. Jorge died yesterday after suffering a heart attack earlier in the week. Information on a memorial service for this gentle, unwavering defender of the people will be announced soon. The Labor Forum salutes our compañero, Jorge Lawton. A luta continua. I also want to make note that Jorge died on September 21st, the same day Troy Davis was executed by the state of Georgia 3 years ago. Hundreds of thousands of people around the world mobilized to declare that innocence matters, challenging Troy's conviction and death sentence despite any physical evidence linking him to the crime, and the recantation of multiple eyewitnesses, witnesses that charged the police in Savannah with intimidation and threats to gain a testimony against Davis. Troy Davis wrote a letter to his supporters and family just before he was murdered by the state saying, "We need to dismantle this unjust system." That's his quote. A sentiment that both Troy and Jorge struggled for, and one we pledge to further here on the Labor Forum. So it's kind of a somber way to begin the Labor Forum here on September 22nd. But it's really important that we always remember those who struggle for justice and for liberation, for peace, for equality, and for the rights of all of humanity. And as we always say here at the Labor Forum, we have this program for now many years, thanks to Gary Washington, who started it in 1986, and that it is continuing to bring the voices of workers, the voices for workers, and the voices opinions and stories about workers and by workers. So we will move to our next segment, which we're kind of have a formula now on the labor forum now that we've moved to 1 hour. And I have to say, I forgot. I promised somebody that I would give them a shout out. I met Halim this past Friday at a movie called Dirty Wars that was being shown at First Existentialist. And in the discussion afterwards, following it at the end, he came across the room to me and he said, I listen to the Labor Forum all the time. I just love it. So I want to make sure that people who appreciate this program know that we appreciate you. So Halim, thank you so much for that warm praise to all of us here at WRFG. Paul McLennan is here. He is with the Amalgamated Transit Workers Union, and he has our This Week in Labor History, something that we all look forward to because we learn so much from the research that he does. Hi, Paul. Thanks.
Thanks, Diane. I've got two events in labor history this week. The first happened on September 25th, 1891, when two African-American sharecroppers affiliated with the Colored Farmers National Alliance and Union on strike for higher wages in Lee County, Arkansas, were killed. By the time a white mob led by the local sheriff put down the cotton pickers' strike, more than a dozen people had been killed. In the 1880s and 90s, the Farmers Alliance was an important cooperative movement. A branch called the Colored Farmers National Alliance and Cooperative Union was started in 1886, and it helped members pay land mortgages, and in 1891 organized a general cotton harvest strike. The Colored was founded in Texas in 1886 as a black counterpart to the Farmers Alliance, an all-white organization that was part of the late 19th century populist agrarian reform movement. The Colored Farmers Alliance spread quickly throughout the South, claiming a membership of more than 1 million just 4 years after its founding. In 1891, Alliance founder and spokesman R.M. Humphrey came up with a plan to organize a national strike of black cotton pickers in order to raise their wages. At the time, many white landowners conspired with each other to keep wages miserably low for black workers, and local law enforcement often rounded up African Americans on vagrancy charges and forced them to work off their fines on select plantations, a practice known as peonage. In 1891, cotton pickers in Lee County, organized by Ben Patterson of Memphis, Tennessee, seized an opportunity and went on strike after word spread that a local landowner would pay $1 per 100 pounds rather than the going rate of 50 cents. Strike leaders subsequently traveled throughout the county, urging others to join the movement, though with little success. In fact, conflict between strikers and non-strikers resulted in two cotton pickers being killed on September 25th. In response, the county sheriff organized a posse to seek out Patterson and his followers. By September 29th, the strikers were on the run. The white posse killed 2 strikers and captured 9. Those captured were later seized by masked men as they were being transported and subsequently hanged. By the time the mob finished suppressing the strike, it had killed 15 African Americans and imprisoned another 6. The cotton pickers' strike of 1891 revealed just how far white landowners and authorities were willing to go in order to keep black laborers in a state of subservience and poverty so as to protect their own profits. The second event this week happened on September 21st, 1912, when labor organizer Mother Jones led a march of miners' children through the streets of Charleston, West Virginia. Mother Jones was an Irish-American school teacher and dressmaker who became a well-known labor and community organizer. Born in Cork, Ireland on May 1, 1830, she came from a long line of agitators. When she was a child, she watched British soldiers march through the streets, the heads of Irishmen stuck on their bayonets. When her father's father, an Irish freedom fighter, was hanged, her father was forced to flee to America with his family. In her early 20s, she moved to Chicago, where she worked as a dressmaker, and then to Memphis, where she met and married George Jones, a skilled iron molder and dedicated union activist. The couple had 4 children when tragedy struck, a yellow fever epidemic in 1867, which killed hundreds of people, took the lives of Mary's husband and all 4 children. Tragedy struck Mary again when she lost everything in the Great Chicago Fire of 1871. After the fire, Mary began to travel across the country. The nation was undergoing dramatic change, and industrialization was changing the nature of work. She moved from town to town in support of workers' struggles. In Birmingham, Alabama, she helped black and white miners during a nationwide coal strike. She organized a massive show of support for Eugene Debs, the leader of the American Railway Union, after he served a 6-month prison sentence for defying a court order not to disrupt railroad traffic in support of striking Pullman workers. In June 1897, after Mary addressed the Railway Union Convention, she began to be referred to as Mother by the men of the Union. The name stuck. That summer, when the 9,000-member mine workers called a nationwide strike of soft coal miners, and tens of thousands of miners laid down their tools, Mary arrived in Pittsburgh to assist them. She became Mother Jones to millions of working men and women across the country for her efforts on behalf of the miners. Mother Jones was a fearless fighter for workers' rights, once labeled the most dangerous woman in America by a U.S. district attorney. Her voice had great carrying power, and her organizing methods were unique for her time. She welcomed African American workers and involved women and children in strikes. She organized miners' wives into teams armed with mops and brooms to guard the mines against scabs. She came to national attention in 1912 and 13 during the Paint Creek cabin strike in West Virginia because of the publicity resulting from frequent violence. Mother Jones often involved the wives and children of miners to dramatize a situation. On September 21st, 1912, she led a march of miners' children through the streets of Charleston, West Virginia. Martial law in the area was declared and taken back twice. Then, on February 12, 1913, after leading a protest about conditions in the strike area, she was arrested. She was convicted by a military court of conspiring to commit murder and was sentenced to 20 years in prison. Her trial, conviction, and imprisonment created such a furor that the U.S. Senate ordered a committee to investigate conditions in the West Virginia coal fields. However, on May 8, 1913, before the investigation got underway, newly elected Governor Hatfield set Mother Jones. She was 83 years old. She died in Silver Spring, Maryland, age 100, and was Illinois. She is known for these famous words: "Pray for the dead and fight like hell for the living."
Thank you so much, Paul. Kind of a suitable ending to that and to the 2 comrades of ours that we memorialized at the beginning. So on the phone with us here at the Labor Forum today, we have Abayomi Azikiwe, and he's been on this program before, and he's calling in from Detroit. We always look forward to speaking with you. Hi, Abayomi.
Hello, how are you?
Well, we have a beautiful day here in Atlanta, and we are going to discuss this crisis that is taking place in Detroit. And then later in the program, we're going to have Carl Hartrampf on, who's with the Task Force for the Homeless here, and we're going to really talk about the issue of access to water as being a weapon used against the poor and working folks. So if you can, in a short amount of time, explain to folks first what happened in Detroit with literally tens of thousands of people shut off, losing their water service totally, and then the developments that happened today.
What has happened is that the emergency manager who was appointed by the governor is essentially waging war on the people in the city of Detroit. Since March, there's been 19,000 shutoffs of residential water resources. And this, of course, has created a really untenable situation in the city. We've been out just about every week demonstrating against these shutoffs. The shutoffs have nothing to do with what the emergency manager and the Detroit Water and Sewage Department is saying, that people are not paying their bills. What's going on is that the system has been collapsing for years due to insurmountable debt from the banks' refusal to reinvest in the infrastructure of the Detroit Water and Sewage Department. Then there's the issue of the home foreclosures, plant closings, and warehouse and other commercial structural closings where there are water resources there that are being wasted on a daily basis. There are some abandoned structures where water has been running for over 2 years. So these costs are being passed on to the poor and working people of Detroit. So in essence, that is what's going on. And our position is that water is a human right. It's not a privilege. And it creates a lot of problems when you don't have water services in households.
Abayomi, may I ask you, are you out demonstrating somewhere?
No, I'm on the street.
Well, we can tell you must be on the street.
Right.
All right. Well, so that is an incredibly ominous situation for people in Detroit that have already suffered so much as a result of, as you said, the ability of the banks to really rob the city of Detroit itself as well as its residents. So could you talk about what happened today, or what led up to what happened today?
There was a class action lawsuit filed back during the month of July, and this was a result what came on the heels of an objections hearing in the federal bankruptcy case, where over 600 people had filed legal objections to the so-called plan of adjustment, which is the plan for exiting the federal bankruptcy. This is the largest municipal bankruptcy in U.S. history. So what is going on here is largely unprecedented for the United States. So out of that objections hearing, the issue of the massive water shutoff was raised. And at the same time, a team of attorneys got together and they filed a class action lawsuit on behalf of victims of the water shutoffs, as well as 4 community organizations, one of which is the Moratorium Now Coalition. And there have been a series of hearings. Today, there were evidentiary hearings. This is part of the federal bankruptcy. And testimony was presented by victims of the water shutoffs, people who have fallen into the quagmire of the Detroit Water and Sewage Department. These are people who have children, people who are senior citizens who have chronic illnesses, and their water services either are still shut off or have been shut off, which caused undue hardship to these households. So there was a tremendous amount of testimony today, and then, of course, it may have to continue tomorrow.
So what is the goal that you all are trying to achieve by these hearings, or by the struggle? I mean, are you trying to get a payment plan for people, or just the water should be turned back on? What is it that you're looking to do?
Well, we start from the premise that water is a human right. We want an indefinite moratorium on water shutoffs. There was one imposed earlier as a result of mass pressure. We had on July 18th, we had thousands of people who were here from around the country who demonstrated through downtown Detroit, and this drew national and international attention. That following Monday, the deputy director of the Detroit Water and Sewage Department declared a 2-week, 15-day moratorium. Then it was extended for another period of time, but now it has been lifted. So the water shutoffs are continuing. Also, they ostensibly turned over control of the Detroit Water and Sewage Department from the emergency manager to the corporate-oriented mayor who took office last year. So this is what's going on. We want an indefinite moratorium on water shutoffs. We also want the implementation of a water affordability plan for people. And we're also looking at the impact of the interest rate swap of, in fact, put the Detroit Water and Sewage Department in massive debt obligations. And we also want a situation in existence where people who are being threatened with shut off are evaluated based upon children being in the house, whether they're senior citizens there, people who have illnesses who absolutely need access to water. And this is totally being neglected. But this is being done deliberately because they want to drive even more people out of the city of Detroit. This has nothing to do, as I said earlier, with people not paying their bills. In fact, you have corporate clients and even governmental clients who owe hundreds of thousands of dollars and even millions of dollars in arrears for their water bills, and they have not been shut off. So it's clearly a war on the poor and working people of Detroit.
So in other words, there are entities that are profit-making organizations who owe tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars, but they'll cut off somebody who owes 150?
Or even less. Yeah, some people didn't know anything, and they were still shut off. They hired a private company, Hartrampf Wrecking Corporation, and it's interesting that it's a wrecking company that they hired to shut off water because they're trying to wreck the communities throughout the city of Detroit. And there's been blockades against Hartrampf, and people have been arrested blocking trucks over there on at least 2 occasions. Yeah, so it has nothing to do with the fact that some people are not able to pay their water bills. Added to this is the fact that the water rates have gone up 125% just over the last few years. So all these costs, based upon the abandonment of the city in terms of the industrial infrastructure, the commercial infrastructure, which is abandoned, where pipes are broken, where water hasn't been shut off, and it's just been running, in some cases, a year, 2 years, where they have water bills of tens of thousands of dollars. These costs are being passed on to people who are still occupying their homes in residential areas.
Abayomi, are you able to stay on this conversation while we segue into what's happening here into Atlanta and maybe add to the conversation? Okay.
Yeah, I can hold for a while longer, yes.
Okay, thanks. Just one final, I guess, ask. Detroit is surrounded by water.
Yeah, 20% of the world's fresh water resources.
So I know that in some other cities and in other locations in the country, there's this whole kind of move to privatize water. So that city service water, this idea of buying bottled water, making money off of actually taking the water out of city pipes and then sticking it in a bottle, putting a label on it, and then charging more money for it. So is it your sense that Detroit is moving clearly to privatize your water system?
No question about it. They have Veolia Corporation, who is right now in the Detroit Water and Sewage Department, supposedly doing an evaluation. Last week, the corporate-oriented mayor presented a plan for regional Great Lakes Water Authority that would bring in suburban interests where they would have the controlling authority within this new water system. This was approved by the city council on Friday in a vote of 7-2. So yes, they have a clear agenda of privatizing the water systems in this area, and it's being done solely for profit. And anytime you have companies like Veolia that are involved, you know automatically that they're up to no good.
Okay, on that final word right there about Veolia, because we have had the Boston bus drivers on, we have talked about Veolia running the segregated bus system in occupied Palestine, where Palestinians can't get on their buses. So Veolia's name comes up many times, and Veolia is here in Atlanta as well. So we want to always make sure that we know who's who running something as important as water and transportation and other issues critical to every person. We're going to take a short break right now, listeners, and then we will be back with Carl Hartrampf from the Task Force for the Homeless, and who's going to update us on another very critical water situation. And we'll have Abayomi chime in as he sees how he can contribute to that conversation. So please stay tuned.
WRFG 89.3 FM has underwriting opportunities for your business or organization at affordable rates. Your announcement includes business name, location, contact info, and service provided. Please contact the WRFG business office if interested. The number is 404-523-3471.
And we're back here at WRFG 89.3 FM in Atlanta. You are tuned into the Labor Forum. On the telephone with us from Detroit, we have Abayomi Azikiwe, and we know he's outside because we can hear the background noise, and so we'll hope that Abayomi is able to find a quieter spot on the street. Not always easy to do, and we thank him because we know he was at that hearing that he discussed that took place today. In the studio with us, though, is Carl Hartrampf. Hi, Carl.
Hello.
And we're so happy that you're able to make time to come in and talk to us. A very critical situation is happening with the Peachtree Pine shelter. It's a community that services and helps hundreds and literally hundreds of homeless men, women, and children throughout a week and thousands over the course of a year. And the task force has been engaged in a bitter struggle with developers and other elements in the corporate power structure here in Atlanta, as well as the elected officials going way back to the Shirley Franklin days. So this past Thursday and Friday, we saw on both television and in the newspaper that the task force was carrying around a $100,000 check to try to make a down payment or pay back some of a water bill which has been accumulating, and nobody in the city will take it.
That's
so,
right.
So maybe you could start a little bit before that to find out how it is that anybody has a $100,000 check to pay for water.
Well, thank you for having me on tonight. It's very important that we get this issue out in front of the public. The Task Force for the Homeless has been in existence for over 30 years, and we started originally as purely a service provider to keep the homeless from freezing to death on the street. It was organized by Mayor Andrew Young at the time. And since then, we've evolved into not only an advocacy group, but also a direct service provider and shelter provider for men and women on the street. And we currently have about 400 men in our shelter and approximately 100 women and children, ranging from infants to teenagers. So it was a big shock to us when we received, after 4 years of not having any problem with the city of Atlanta in terms of paying our water bill, because they knew we were providing a humanitarian service that they were not able to provide at the time, that they threatened to shut the water off Friday, or Monday actually today, if we didn't make payments on our water bill. So through the graces of one of our benefactors, one of our patrons, we were actually able to raise $100,000 to present to the city as a down payment on our past due water bill, and to offer to work out a payment plan for the balance to keep the shelter open, to keep the people in the shelter from suffering the indignities and the risks and the health factors of not having any water and having to survive in the heat on the street with no support services. We went around, as you said, Thursday to meet with the Commissioner of Water. She refused to negotiate with us. She did accept our meeting. We did have a discussion. She insisted that we put our offer in writing, which we did, and we brought a cashier's check along with that offer on Friday. She refused to meet with us on Friday, sent us to the law department. The law department refused to meet with us. The mayor's spokesperson came and said that we received your offer in writing. We will respond by 4:30 on Friday afternoon. And at that point, we realized they did not really want to accept any money on the payment or any resolution to this matter. They wanted us out of the building. We did finally receive a response at 5 o'clock that Friday afternoon that said they could not accept any partial payment on the water bill due to, as they said, several things. One, we haven't followed a plan in the past. Two, we have unsafe conditions at the shelter. And basically we responded and said, you're just avoiding the issue of serving the homeless in Atlanta, and you want the property, and you want us out of the street. And since then, we've been crafting a response to that letter from the Chief Operating Officer of the City of Atlanta, and we'll provide that letter to him either later this evening or tomorrow morning. In the meantime, the city did offer to work with us over a 7 to 10 day period to find other accommodations for the people that are living with us and sheltering with us now. And our board is meeting tonight to consider that and respond appropriately. Several comments that the caller from Detroit made that echo with our situation. This is not a one entity situation. We have had privatization of our water in the city. We've had neglect of our infrastructure in the city. We've had our water rates raised almost 300% over the last 10 years. So we're in the same situation, and in this situation, we truly believe that the downtown business interests are trying to use our non-payment of water as a way to seize the property that we occupy and actually have dispute over now and have held for the last 20 years for services for the homeless. So it's a very disturbing situation, and I hate to hear other situations like this occurring around the country, but I have to admit that it does seem to be a power grab and a land grab by the downtown business interest.
So, Carl, one of the things I think most people may not know about the task force and the building that's there at Peachtree and Pine is the plans that you actually have for water capture, that you have a rooftop garden and that you irrigate it through rainwater. Could you talk a little bit about the possibility of actually getting off the water grid?
Yes, we have had plans for the last 10 years to completely renovate the building and make it more, have more classrooms, more studio space, a roof garden, fully renovated and implemented roof garden, an art studio. Those plans were dashed in 2008 when we were refused funding, and our funding began to get cut with a interference from the business community and other entities downtown that did not want to see us improve our building and remain there. In the meantime, we've gotten donations and support from other members of the community, primarily the faith community, but others that have come down to help us build and plant a roof garden that has over 80 beds and grows vegetables for the men there at the shelter to supplement their food that they receive from the churches. We've implemented a rainwater catchment system with from the volunteer effort of the churches that captures about 500 gallons of water every time it rains, which is really phenomenal. And that's just off of two little sheds that are on the roof. We calculated that if we capture all of the rainwater that runs off of our roof, which is approximately 25,000 square feet of rooftop, an inch of rain would get us somewhere over 30,000. My understanding is 30,000 gallons of water, and so that is a phenomenal amount of water that we could use to actually flush the toilets and take showers for the men and the women and the children at the shelter. So we are planning that now. We're we have drawings and plans. We have ideas where that would be installed on the property, and we're also taking steps to do a water audit to make sure we're conserving the water that we have wherever we receive it from, that we look out for other alternative sources of water. Rainwater is one, private sources of water is another, and then actually drilling a well is third. And then finally, we are going to implement a conservation policy to educate the men and women that actually stay with us to learn how to conserve water and make our building more sustainable.
I have a question for both the Detroit and Atlanta situations. When we talk about human rights and the basic rights people have to not only water but also housing, the actual cost that these decisions that are being made by political and corporate leaders, what will happen and what has happened in Detroit and what will happen in Atlanta if this service is not available to people?
We'll start with you, Abayomi. Oh,
He's gone.
I guess we lost him. Okay, we'll go to Carl.
Hello.
Oh,
Anybody
hello?
Detroit?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Abayomi. Yeah. Did you hear the question?
Well, I did. The human cost is enormous because what it's going to do is to drive more people out of the city. Now, in terms of the working class, the capitalists, they want to make maximum profits in the short term. So they see this through the refinancing of the bonds for the Detroit Water and Sewage Department, and also this new proposed Great Lakes Regional Water Authority. And they have no intentions of going after these banks, like J.P. Morgan Chase, Morgan Stanley, UBS, Bank of America. All of them have been involved in the shady and unscrupulous bond deals that have driven the city, as well as the Detroit Water and Sewage Department, into deep financial debt. So their objective is to make maximum profits in the shortest possible time, and they don't care if they run people out of the city, cause deaths, and other undue hardships. So that's our job, to raise issues related to the impact, the real impact of these water shutoffs. And as I mentioned before, this is clearly a war on the poor and the working people of the city of Detroit. And it's the same interests. For example, Coca-Cola, Nestle's, Veolia, all these corporations are involved in massive efforts internationally to privatize water, to promote bottled water as an alternative to water out of a tap or well water. So these are the issues that we're facing right now, and it's not just a Detroit issue, Atlanta issue, or even a United States issue. This is a global issue because this is going on all over the planet.
Carl, do you want to answer the question too?
Yes, I think that to echo what our friend in Detroit said is that this is really an issue at this point in Atlanta of two issues. One is the bond infrastructure, the bonds that were floated to repair the infrastructure in Atlanta are up to $3 billion now. So to repay those bonds and to make sure that we have sufficient carrying costs for those bonds, they have to continue to raise the water rates. So they cannot allow one entity or one public entity or one private entity to not pay their water, because then that becomes a reflection on the collection of the bonds, and the bonds are harder to sell, and so it becomes a spiraling thing. But that's on the economic side. Has not, like I say, has no regard for the poor that can't afford to pay the water that goes up 300%. I mentioned this fact of Mayor Shirley Franklin at the time, and she just ignored it. She did not have any response. Since then, they floated two more bonds, so the bond cost now that the financial costs we're carrying on the water system is huge, and any effort to conserve is actually counterproductive to the current bond structure. If we put a massive conservation effort in Atlanta, that will drop the revenue stream that will then harm the value of those bonds. So the city of Atlanta is actually not promoting conservation. So this is a financial-driven scheme to make money, as you say, for the bond financiers and the people that control that financial system. On the other side, we're in a precarious situation downtown because we have a building that was given to us over 20 years ago, and they don't want us, the downtown business interest does not want the homeless in downtown Atlanta, period. We are the largest shelter in the Southeast. We're grandfathered in. There's no other place to replace this facility, and they have no other way to get rid of us except to begin to cut our funding and buy our note, foreclose on our property, and then in fact cut our water off. So they're using it as a tool, one, to make money on the bond side, but then two, to displace the poor on the flip side. So it's really something that needs to be studied and talked about. We have a very interesting action continuing now in the courts on the foreclosure issue. We claim that we've been fraudulently and wrongfully foreclosed, and we've presented evidence to the special master and the judge in the court that they say, yes, you have enough evidence to move forward in a trial to present to a jury. In other words, they have recognized our claim as being wrongfully and fraudulently foreclosed so that we can present it to the people, to 12 peers on a jury. So there's a lot going on here, not just the right to water, but also the right to housing, and the right to occupy space, basically, that's been given to you and that you have a right to be in. So it's a very important issue. I'm very glad you brought it to RFG tonight.
Well, one of the things that seems to me is that the very fact that a special master has found that there is legitimacy to your claims of being fraudulently foreclosed, that all of a sudden the city, as you said, after 4 years of recognizing that the Task Force for the Homeless provides a service that is not going to be able to be replicated or filled by anyone else, even though that's what they say, that they've got bed spaces for people. It's sort of puzzling to me that if these better, cleaner, more healthy, nicer places were available all this time, that they didn't go ahead and have people take them.
Exactly, and we've brought that point up before, and we've been in this situation before where they begin to pressure us about getting rid of the shelter and how they're going to shut it down, and we say, we don't want to shut down. We want these people to have the facilities they need. If you have other facilities, let us know, because we'll place everybody out into other better facilities. That's our number one goal, is to get people out of the shelter into better housing. So it's really, when they come at us that way, we have a response for that, and they can't produce the housing. I mean, that's why we're here, because they can't produce the housing. If they could have produced the housing that's better and more affordable, our people would not be there. The homeless would not exist. They would be in housing. That's the whole point.
I wanted to just raise something. As many people who listen to this program know, I worked for General Motors for 30 years. And I think this is something that's been raised both in Detroit and here in Atlanta. When I got hired way back in 1976, what we were told was that General Motors had this big water bill, and that in lieu of making payment on this big water bill, that when they were hiring people, if they would hire more people of color, more women, and more people who lived on the south side of the city, that water bill would just all of a sudden be forgiven. Now, I don't know whether that's true or not, but that's what we all who got hired in 1976 thought was happening. I'm wondering, both Abayomi and Carl, what you know about the experience of corporate entities being forgiven their large water bills in both Detroit and Atlanta. Abayomi, you first.
Yeah, the same thing is going on in Detroit in terms of forgiveness. They forgive the corporations. For example, the Illich Holdings, which owns the Detroit Red Wings and the Detroit Tigers, Joe Louis Arena. Now they're utilizing public money to build a $400 million entertainment complex. These people owed hundreds of thousands of dollars in arrears on not only water bills, but also corporate taxes. But at the same time, if an individual household owes more than 2 years in back taxes, their home is automatically foreclosed. So it's corporate welfare for the rich, and it's really a form of dictatorship backed up by the state for the poor and the working people. So this is what we're facing in the city of Detroit, and it was the banks that drove out many households through the predatory lending schemes of a decade to a decade and a half ago, and it's really had a devastating impact on the city's tax base. So when the city tax base is drained, they have to go and borrow money from these same banks that destroyed the housing industry, and they have to borrow at a very disadvantageous level. So the situation just perpetuates itself. So yeah, there's clearly two different standards, one for working people and the poor, and the other for the rich.
Carl, so I know that the city put out this list. Do you know any of the other big entities that are on this list that owe tens and thousands of dollars, and what's happening to them?
Well, I do know it's within the discretion of the commissioner to make payment plans and forgive water bills. We've not gotten any clear guidance of how they use, what their guidelines are for that. We feel like we're being treated unequally, unfairly, because we do know that there are large corporate entities and multifamily housing entities that have water bills larger than ours, that have been worked on a payment plan, that have not followed through, that then get another payment plan. So we do know it's in their discretion. We also know that they were not aggressively moving on the water bill until they failed in their last round of court. We had asked for, or they had asked to evict us as a separate issue from the previous determination we'd gotten from the special master. They filed a separate proceeding for eviction. Under the state of laws of Georgia, that proceeding is folded into the previous proceeding that we have defenses for, and we have, we think, a good case to present the jury. And so they were unable to do that, so immediately we got the letter that our water bill is going to be cut off. So we think this is, again, a discretionary move to put us out so they won't have to go through court and have all the evidence that we've amassed over the 8 years we've been litigating this to a jury. And so, again, it gets back to the discretionary powers of the ones that are in control, not only of the financial resources, but the governmental resources, to discriminate against the poor, and in this case, the poor black men that are not like the people that are walking around downtown. And it is a discriminatory by race and also by class. When we sued the city to try to get the water bill, forgiven in the court said, after looking at our argument, that we could not sue the city. The city was immune from prosecution on our claim that they were unfairly discriminating against us, because they were immune from prosecution under the law of sovereign immunity. So we haven't even had a real determination in the courts over the validity and the right for them to collect this water bill. But because they've gotten the ruling from the judge that we can't sue them, they're moving forward.
Well, there's been untold number of stories of just residential people who have gotten thousands and thousands of dollars of water bills that very clearly were mistakes. They get a lot of publicity, and there's a lot of sympathy, and I assume that they get solved in some manner. So I think the situation of the water department here in Atlanta, we don't even have to go into all of the alleged theft and mismanagement that has been revealed. The fact that literally millions of dollars apparently of equipment are missing, or at least not accounted for. So it's sort of this really strange situation, I do believe, of just what you said, that after this court situation, all of a sudden the city, which has been a collaborator with the developers in downtown area, it's not as though they have no skin in the game here to try to get rid, not just of the task force, but I think this larger point. We all remember well during the Olympics the whole series of legislative moves, regulations that were put into effect to essentially cleanse downtown of anybody who looked poor and black. Would you mind commenting on that a little bit, Carl?
That's right. And the task force took a step to actually file a lawsuit during the Olympics, when we had evidence at the time that the police had been given instructions to arrest homeless people on the street and to get them off the street, and there was other issues, policies to actually provide bus tickets for the homeless to wherever they wanted to go to get them out of town. We were successful in prosecuting that lawsuit, and there's a federal court order that prohibited the police from arbitrarily arresting people that appeared homeless and poor on the street. We also discovered at the time that they were filling out the blanks in the citations before they would go out on roll call, just to put them out in people's hands so they could be arrested with ease at the time. So that's always been a problem in Atlanta, and is in other cities too. And in Atlanta, it's been particularly onerous and ugly because the downtown business sector, business groups, wants to develop the downtown business area to be, a city of gold, a city of pristine city with no poor people, and we've, nobody with bags that they don't like. They don't want people in the cafeteria, and it's really obscene and very disturbing about some of the emails that we've discovered in our pursuit through the court system about how people were talking about the people on the street that this group, meaning the task force, supports and fosters in their poorness. So we are very disturbed in that and have filed suit because of that.
I have a question again, both for Detroit, the brother, and Carl, about the value of the neighborhoods and the property where people are experiencing this. In Detroit, do you see a pattern in terms of where the shutoffs are happening in terms of plans for development? Can you see the outlines of where they're trying to go with the city? And in terms of Atlanta, why in particular is this piece of property so of interest to them?
In regard to Detroit, they are all over the city. Even the neighborhoods that are considered more stable and have higher incomes, they have also been hit by these massive water shutoffs. And we cannot leave out the question of race because Detroit is the largest per capita African-American populated major city in the United States. I mean, over 85% of the population is black. So they are all over the city, terminating people's residential water services. And they are targeting the downtown area, the midtown area, for what they consider to be development. We don't consider it development because what it is doing is just creating a situation where very wealthy people can get subsidized through public tax dollars to engage in additional profit making. So that is the real scheme that's behind all of this. And that's why we have brought this into the federal bankruptcy court, because any restructuring plan that excludes working class and the poor is not going to work here in the city of Detroit or anywhere else in the United States.
Well, and as far as Atlanta goes, I hear what you're saying there about Detroit, and we have similar neighborhood issues, not with the water so much as with the taxes. But in this case, which is very interesting, we have a unique combination on this particular piece of property, with it being in a very desirable now. 20 years ago, it was not desirable. Now it's very desirable downtown across from a major hospital that wants to expand its medical office building complex and its campus. Their primary developer has bought up almost all the rest of the block that we're on and would like to buy our property. We had an appraisal done that was substantial. They didn't offer us that much. We refused. From that point on, we've had this constant attack, not only on our funding and our notes, but through the taxes. And now, since they're not being successful in the courts, they're going after our water bill. And which is interesting that they're now using this stick of the water and terminating our right to water, which is a human right, to actually get the piece of real estate we're on for future development by the hospital across the street. And we have emails in our evidentiary file that reflect this very conversation that I just described to you. How much will it take? Don't bid it up because we can get it cheaper and we can foreclose and I'll get them out. If you give me an extra 20%, I'll make sure I get rid of the homeless. I mean, it's very disturbing. And our main goal now is to hold on until we can get to trial.
Thank you very much, Carl. Thank you very much. Abayomi. I want to give both of you an opportunity to give our listeners contact information or another place they can go to for additional details about these struggles. So, Abayomi?
Yes, in Detroit, the Moratorium Now Coalition, it's at moratorium-mi.org. That's moratorium-mi.org, and it has a lot of information about the financial crisis in the city.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Abby.
And Carl, how can people get in touch with the task force?
Well, we have a website, www.taskforceforthehomeless, AtlantaTaskForceForTheHomeless.org. And we also have numerous videos on YouTube that not only are the court hearings, but also on this particular issue that we've been very thankful. We have a wonderful person that's helping us put the video library together, Ozzy. And so if you want more information, that's the best place. And we do have a website there that you can dig deeper into, see our other programs and other services. Thank you.
So, listeners, I appreciate very much that you've stayed tuned, and I hope that you found this discussion both valuable and informative. Please come back again next Monday, 4 to 5, here on WRFG 89.3 FM, and stay tuned all the time to the station that brings you progressive information and quality handpicked music, and that's here at WRFG.
We will not bow down to a high race.